in front of me at all.
Ellie, Chappell.
Ellie. And Ellie, where do you live?
I live in Wellington Bridge at the moment, but I was born in Carrickmannon in Glyn.
Up the road here.
Yeah.
Up the road here. Yeah. And do you live by yourself?
I do. I
You
live alone now, yeah.
Yeah. And we're here on the 1st of February. It's the first day of spring.
Right.
And we've come through a long winter. We've come through 2 years of COVID, really, in some ways.
Yeah.
How has that been for you?
At first, very lonely, because I used to go out quite a lot. I used to go dancing, and I used to go to, like, the day centre and Wednesday's club and all that. And it meant just suddenly changing from going out all the time to being in and not being able to contact family. All my family were away at the time when COVID began. I have one in Germany and one in England, and 2 were in West Cork. But my son actually moved up during COVID from West Cork to Wexford, but I still wasn't able to see the grandchildren. So that was a bit annoying, because, they were so near and yet so far, as I say, I couldn't see them, because with the 2 kilometre limit and then the 5 kilometre limit, it was just, it was like being yanked out of a big community and just stuck somewhere on your own, so. But then again, I think I was lucky because I was near shops and I was able to walk, whereas where I lived before that, I wouldn't have been near a shop. So there's some positives in it, so, yeah. And you get sort of used to your own company after a while. And trying to keep occupied was sort of, I do a few runs around the garden or do a bit of gardening, and I learned to play a whole lot of CDs that I hadn't done before. I actually read books. I always read. I always love reading, but I read a lot of them during lockdown. The thing is, you miss your friends and you miss someone to talk to. That's the thing, So, I don't know. I suppose there was a lot of people that were a lot worse off than me. Excuse me. But they actually lived on their own way out in the country or somewhere, and had no relatives. Another thing I had to do was learn how to go online and order my shopping. I used to ring it in at first, and they said, can you do it online? So I persevered, but I got there anyway in the end. And anything else, I used to walk the dog then when we were allowed sort of outside a bit, I have a little dog, which was great company. Only for her I would have been sort of lost. I spent a lot of time talking to the dog. I don't think of what else I can tell you now about that. I did actually, I had started a barrel a while ago, and I would sort of practice that, and then I had a banjo, so I was trying to learn that, but I got fed up with it after a while too. And I don't know, it's just missing company, because I'd be here at different meetings, and then I used to go dancing 2 or 3 times a week, and you'd miss all the friends you'd meet, and the laugh and the joke and all that sort of thing. And that's one thing I found very depressing. The television had only depressing things on it. I'd have loved if they had a few good comedies or something like that, and I think people needed that at that time to have a good laugh. I also spent a good lot of time on Facebook. I kept in contact with people that way, and I try and put up something funny if I could, so it might help other people get a bit of a laugh as well. But it was great when they said you could at least go 5 kilometres. At least you could get out somewhere. But when they said that in your own county, then I was able to visit my brothers and sisters, whereas I couldn't visit them before, and I used to visit them, and they're all like seniors like myself. But that was good when I could get back to visiting them again, even with masks on and staying at a distance. But I was also 80 years old during, so I didn't have my party. I had a little bit with my son and his family and that, but I would have had a party otherwise, like, you know, so with all my friends and that. But there's all those sort of things, but you get over them, so, you know.
And how do you find now? Do you find there's a big relief?
There is, yeah. It's like sort of a big weight being lifted off your shoulders, because although you still wear your mask and you still get everything, but it's nice to see people mingle and go out and be normal, you know. And you miss giving people a hug. That's, you know, and I miss my grandchildren, like, and that's, you know, and I'm sure they found it hard to get through as well, like, you know. But I think it's the contact. The contact, that's the worst part of it. You know, the human contact. You can talk, and my family were very good. They used to ring every day, and, you know, and that's, but it's just being there, actually, physically being with them and with your friends and that, and that's just what you miss. It did get you down sometimes, I have to admit that, but then you just have to pick yourself up and say, well, it'll be over, that's it, you know, it's going to end sometime.
We're social animals, really.
We are, yeah. Well, we sort of, the Irish people are very social, you know, and we need to talk to other people. But I'm sure there's a lot, excuse me, a lot of a tickle in my throat. There's a lot of people that went through very hard times. I was lucky, there was nobody sort of close that died. Well, I had 2 cousins that did, and I couldn't go to their funeral, but other people lost parents and I did get the COVID myself, but I got through it. I still have like sort of a throat, and that's still sticking with me. A bit of a problem, but I suppose it'll eventually go. And you worry about your children getting it, and you know what happens if they get it bad. And I did have a nephew who got it very bad and was in hospitalised for quite a while, and he's still fighting the after effects, sort of, you know. It's a completely different atmosphere, different everything, you know. You're afraid when you go into a supermarket, you're watching and you're sort of aware, and you have to be careful that you don't get too near people, and in some supermarkets you can't do that, like, you know. Yeah, it's been an experience, I'll have to say that, and I'm glad I came out the other side of it, but and it's great now to be able to mix a bit with other people, like, you know, and get back to some sort of normal.
Are you back dancing?
I did go last Friday, yeah. Yeah, I will go back, you know, to the dances, and just the local ones so far, you know, but they're all starting up now, so. But it was hard on them too, you know, they had no life, everything was closed down. And the thing is, not being able to go into a restaurant and get a meal, like, which you would, you'd meet family and you go in, or you meet friends and you go in and have a cup of coffee or something like that. That was something you'd miss too, like, you know. So.
Did you upskill in any way yourself? Did you get better on the computer or the phone, or?
I can, yeah, I can get around the phone, that and some, which I like the phone better than the computer, it's handier. But yeah, I could do emails and do things like that, you know, so that's handy. But I still prefer to go down and do my shopping, and, you know, as long as I can do it, I will do it, you know, sort of. But it was handy to be able to do it then, and they were very good. They'd drop your shopping outside the door, and that was good. But then you were told to clean everything, and you were afraid you wouldn't clean it properly, and you know.
There was an awful lot of unknowns at the start, wasn't there?
It scared people. It did scare you. You'd be scared to go outside at first. You know, you're sort of scared even to go outside in your own. They said don't only just go out in your own garden. You know, don't go on the street, and you'll be seeing people passing by, and you just, which you'd normally maybe go and say hello to, or if you're out in the garden. But people didn't, and then sort of if you were out walking, people would move over to the other side. You know, it was a sort of a weird sort of a living, like, you know, it's not what we were used to, I suppose. That's it. I don't know how it's going to affect the children in the future, because it must have been very upsetting for them. Like, they couldn't get them going into school and having to wear masks, some of them, and being separated from, like, when they could just go out and all the GA games and everything. You know, they must have missed it. They must have been bad on the poor children. I mean, we're adults, we can understand it, but to a small child especially, not being able to go and visit their grandma or go, you know, go out and play with their friends. That was the sad part of it, really, because you'd never see any children out playing, no children on bikes. And later on they did start to get out on cycles, you know, when they were able to. But you'd notice the quietness on the road and not much vehicles go on the road, like. That was an eerie feeling. Excuse me. Because the road goes right past mine, and it's a busy road. But there was no big lorries and no big tractors or anything going by, sort of, you know, it was just quiet.
And did you carry any of that kind of weight on your own shoulders about the worry of your own children, your own grandchildren? Yeah,
you did. You were always worried and ringing to see if they were all right, or you hear if any of them had got COVID, or, you know, how they were going to get through it. And there is that worry all the time that someone you know or someone belonging to you get it and get it bad, like, you know. But hopefully this that's still going around is not as bad anyway. So we'll be able to get over it and get through it.
Yeah. And there'll be little bits of adjustment too for people to get back to. You know.
I think it'll take a while before people get back where they can trust themselves and trust other people. They can trust going into different places, because even going into a restaurant now, you'd still be a bit wary. But although they probably still will keep this distance, the 2 meters distance, for a while. But you've just got to get on with it. I don't know how many years I've left in my life, but I'm going to enjoy whatever it is anyway. COVID or no COVID. But you can't give in to it, sort of. You will get down at times, and there's people got very depressed with it. But it's just trying to find things to do. When you're in a small space and you're on your own and you've no one to talk to, it feels as if the place is closing in on you after a while.
Why did you pick up the banjo?
Pardon?
Why did you pick up the banjo?
I always wanted to play a banjo, and a couple of years ago I was visiting my daughter in England and I got a banjo. So I said then, but I got a bit of it, but I didn't get the hang of it, and I was looking for, I'd actually maybe find someone that'll teach it, because it's an old banjo. You know, it's one of the older type, not the new. It's a 5-string banjo, so there's not many people that teaches it. I might find somebody eventually, because I didn't do too well on my own. But it kept me amused, kept me, you know, I don't know, it affected different people in different ways. But it wasn't something we ever thought we'd be ever going through. No, I mean, you don't think you're going to wake up one morning and you're going to be sort of closed down, sort of, you know, life is closing down just like that. And now it's opened up just like that. It was very quick opening up, I think, as well as it's closing down. I suppose that the politicians and that, and everybody got a hard time of it, but they were only learning like the rest of us, and it was hard for them. But I must admire all the people that worked through it. That's just, you know, the people in the shops and the nurses and everyone. It must have been very stressful for all those every day getting up and going out and knowing they are mixing with people. And am I going to get something and come back and bring it to my family? And, you know, if they're living with older people, they could, you know, it must have been very stressful. I suppose I was lucky in that way. I didn't have anybody but myself. If I went out and caught, well, that was me. I caught it and that was it. And I would keep away from my family then, which I did when I had it. I kept away from my son and the grandchildren and daughter-in-law, like, until I was over it. But then again, there you see, when you're going through that, you'd miss having someone else, but you still, it wouldn't matter, because even if they're in the house, you still couldn't mix with them. So it was like a sort of an imprisonment, really, wasn't it?
And I'd say you followed the guidelines fairly strictly. Most people did.
Well, yeah, you did, yeah. Which you were sort of very scared at first until you sort of accustomed to it. It just was a very frightening thing to have happening, you know. And I suppose there was a lot of scaremongering done too at the time, until people realised there was a way they could manage to work around it, you know, and live with it for a while anyway.
That freedom being cancelled must have been very hard for older people, because you were the generation who were told not to move within your outside your gate. We
were told not even to go outside our gate, yeah. But if we had a bit of garden at the back, which I had, and I'd sort of do laps and laps of it every day and do a little bit of garden. But there's only so much you can do, like in a small patch. And I was afraid to go out in the front garden, because you weren't supposed to talk to anyone or see anyone going by, you know, which that was a very hard bit. But then they sort of relaxed a little bit, and you could go out and go for a walk. And you see, even the 5 kilometres was no good to me to go visit friends, because there was nobody living, no family or friends living within 5 kilometres. They were all, say, from 20 to 30 kilometres away from me. So until it went, you can move in your own county, I couldn't go and visit them, or they couldn't come and visit me.
One thing that happened in the last number of years was, one thing that COVID affected was funerals.
Yeah.
Did you notice that yourself?
I did. Well, we had a very good friend actually. She used to come to the Wednesday club with us, who died during COVID, and we couldn't go. Well, we sort of came and lined the streets with her masks on and kept away as, you know, she went past, but we couldn't actually go to the church or go to the grave. We just sort of respects by standing on the side of the street. And then I had a couple of cousins that died, and I couldn't get to their funeral because it was lockdown time. You know, it was hard on anybody that did have somebody, like a mother or anything like that, and especially if they died of COVID, which I think was they couldn't visit him in hospital, they couldn't go to the funeral afterwards, or that must have been very hard on people. I find I was lucky in that way, I didn't have that to cope with. But it sort of changed the face of Ireland, not having funerals or no mass or anything like that, because people they sort of, every Sunday people would go to mass, like, you know, that wasn't there, that was taken from them too. But then they got it on the radio or on the television, and now that seems to be a thing people don't seem to want to go now. They seem to want to see it at home, and that's it. But funerals was very, very hard on a lot of families.
And you know, when you go to a funeral, you shake someone's hand.
No, you can't. No, you couldn't. You couldn't. You just had to sort of just stand back and just acknowledge the family, and that's it. Like, you couldn't shake hands with him, and it was hard for us not being able to, but it must have been much harder for them, because that helps a person. When somebody dies, having all people there to talk to them and people to sympathise with them, it gets you through the first couple of days. I found that when my husband died anyway, the same. It just to get you through having people around and thinking, and it gets you over the shock of it, sort of. And that must have been hard on families. It's even like sisters and brothers couldn't get together, like you couldn't even get home from abroad. That people have their parents die and they couldn't get home. That was very sad. I feel sorry for those people now, yeah.
And you remember you lined the streets, or you formed kind of a guard of honour?
We just lined the street, or if you know a person was coming, you'd go and stand at a certain place on the road where you'd know that the funeral would be going. That was when we were allowed to move out, but before that we couldn't do anything at all. You just listen on the radio to see who's dead, or unless a family member or somebody rang you to tell you who was dead, you wouldn't know. And there was quite a lot of people that did pass during the COVID time.
That the physical handshake, the being close to someone, all
yeah, or give them a hug or something, you know, just to see, to express how you feel for how they're feeling, sort of, you know, it helps. And no, it must be awful for people like that to think about this now when it's gone.
And did you tune into any of the live streams to any people you would have known, or the funeral streams on the computer?
I did, yeah, I did. Actually, there was a person in England who I tuned into that died, that I knew. Yeah, but that's the only way you could do it. But not all churches did that either. Some churches would stream it, but it was only towards the end most of it that they were streaming it. First they weren't. And then it helped if you could go, if you wanted to go to a funeral. I found there was loudspeakers outside, so you could just sit in your car and take part in it that way. You know, when we were able to move around, when you got past the 5 kilometre. But yeah, it's still you can't really go to a funeral and give a person a hug or anything yet. Like, you know, it's unless it's family, of course, but you still have to hold back that little bit, I think, yet.
How do you find going out dancing the other night?
Great. No, it's lovely to see everybody and see people enjoying themselves, you know. You're still a bit cautious, but then you have to go sometime, you know, you have to make that move and get out. And there's a lot of people that still won't go out. They're still afraid, which you can't blame them if they've got some underlying problems or something like that. You have to be careful, or if they've got somebody in the house that's sick. I know somebody that's got a very old mother and they're afraid to go out, you know. She's in her late 90s, but they're afraid to go out. And having said that, there was a man of 102 at the dance Friday night.
Not a bother on.
Not a bother, it's dancing, yeah.
Yeah. You have to weigh up a few things in your own life too, don't you?
You do. You have to see what matters now. Are you going to stay away and keep away from everything, or are you going to just take that step and move outside and enjoy your life, what's left of it? So
the vaccines have helped.
Yeah. Well, I had my 2 vaccines, but I got the COVID before I got the 3rd. So, but the COVID was, yeah, it was a bit frightening at first. You know, it was. I had a few bad days, but.
And when did you get it?
In October.
Right.
It's just over 3 months now since I got it. So
that was a Delta variant, was it?
yeah.
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 That was strong enough.
That was strong enough. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's why I said I was lucky that I didn't have to go into hospital or anything, you know. But I thought it was like a chest infection first, and actually my doctor was treating me for a chest infection. Then I got worse, so I said I booked in a test, and it was confirmed COVID. So.
And did you go in yourself? Did you drive it to Wexford?
Yeah.
So you're still completely independent, and you just,
yeah, I'm still driving. Yeah. Well, you're lost if you can't. But you know, I didn't drive for years. Yeah, and I started driving late in life because my husband used to do driving, but when he got Alzheimer's, I had to do it because he couldn't drive. So, and that's the best thing I ever did.
So there you were last October, and you were locked down for your 10 days or your 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you see, the only thing I had was somebody had called to leave my shopping if I sent in my shopping list. But yeah, you were a bit scared in case you got sort of bad and you had to go to the hospital or something. But thank God that didn't happen. So.
Did you find a relief in the weeks afterwards that you got it?
I did actually, yeah. I said, well, now I've got it. No. But I thought, well, I won't get it again. But you think you can apparently get it again. So. But now this one doesn't seem as bad, and I think to myself, if I do get this one, at least I got over the other one, so hopefully I'd get over this if I got it. So
that gives you a bit of confidence too.
It does, yeah. And I would imagine you get a certain amount of immunity when you have got it, because usually your own immunity is stronger than what you can get in the vaccination, and that's so. Well, that's what we were led to believe for long enough anyway. That if you get the thing and you build up your own immunity, you're all right. They said for 6 months, and then now they've changed it to 3 months, so I don't know what's happening now. So
the most important thing is we're going forward.
Yeah.
You're back dancing and you're
and
back driving.
And the day centre is starting to open. It's opening up, and the Wednesday club I used to go to is opening up, and you know they're all opening up again now. So it's every day you've got a choice of what you can do and what you don't want to do. Whereas then you were told what you can't do, and there was very little you could do. You know.
We took that for granted.
We did. You did. You do take your freedom for granted. You actually do. Yeah. And it's only when it's taken away that you really appreciate it. But then it gives you time to think, gives you time on your own, you know, and you get to value a lot of things you didn't value, and there's a lot of stuff that you know you can do without and you can manage without, and it sort of maybe brings people down to earth a bit more, and a lot of people that were working from home now had enjoyed being with their families, you know, which was nice. And I suppose a lot of the kids won't want their parents going back to work now because they had time to spend with them. Like, so it affected families too, you know, a lot. And now they've got used to being at home. I suppose a lot of them will still continue to work from home. Which, if they can do it, why not? You know, and it takes a lot of traffic off the roads as well. So. There's good and there's bad, I suppose, to everything. You just have to think ahead, work from day to day, and that's it. I know things are scarce and things are dearer, but we'll get over that too, you know, as long as you're able to get out. And you're able to meet your friends, and it's important.
Yeah. We've all got mobile phones in our pockets these days, and we can probably my generation, your generation, we connect through a lot of people through Facebook and WhatsApp in particular. They were helpful tools.
They were.
In the whole thing.
They were.
I found.
Yeah. I found that too because I could keep in contact with my family, you know, a lot. And my daughter set up a family there's a connection where each of us, if whatever we wanted, we put up and all the whole family knew it, you know, that way. Sort of a group, family group, and that's handy, very handy for us. And we were able to exchange our own views and things then, so, you know, it was the next best thing to meeting up.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing, and it kind of, it was there, but it developed much quicker. We embraced it much quicker, you know.
Everything seems to have gone mad in IT, isn't it?
Yeah, in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it does,
Yeah.
Well, you think years ago, I often said that if my parents came back now, they wouldn't know what was happening. It's developed so quickly in my time, like from when I was a child. You didn't know such thing as mobile phone. There wasn't even electricity in some of the houses, you know. And when you got the phone, it was a big thing, and anyone got a phone in. So, and now everybody has them.
Did you ever ask yourself the question during the middle of the whole thing, what would the old people have taught us at all?
Yeah, I did. You see, then again, it probably wouldn't have spread as quick because they mostly stayed in their own place, and you know, and they didn't travel as much, or you know, they'd go to their neighbours or something, but they weren't sort of socially active as we be, like, you know. But they had their own way of managing things, but they would get a shock if they came back and saw all the latest in the phones and televisions and everything like that. They would.
Yeah. Are there any things, I won't keep you much longer, are there any things that you look back in the last 2 years that you're happy to see the back of? Was it whether it be mask wearing or washing or sanitising the hands every
Yeah, it's well, we still have to sanitise the hands and wear the mask, but you know, you can take them off when you go into a restaurant, or you can take them off if you want to meet your family, or because it's like having to wear a mask when you're meeting your family. That was sort of real strange, like, you know. And you didn't know some people, you know. You meet some people with masks, and you didn't know what to wear, who to wear, until they just say who to wear. That was one thing too. It's not knowing who you were talking to. But, I think what would be the most, was just getting out. I think it's just getting outside the door, and you know, if you want to go and talk to a neighbour or go and talk to somebody, and just go down the street and meet people and chat with them. Whereas the streets were empty. There was, you know, there was just nobody around. The only people only came that go to do their shopping. Others, like myself, had it brought to the door. But I think, well, then people found a lot of kindness, I think, from other people in this lockdown. That was something. There's a lot of people showed that they cared, whereas usually everything used to be so busy and nobody had time. But they had time even to ring you or talk on the phone, you know, and I think people were kinder to each other during that. I hope it continues, you know, because it's nice to see people helping others out, you know.
Well, that's a lovely note to end on.
All right.
Right, that was a nice thing to see, to observe happen.
Yeah. Well, let's hope it has brought a lot of people together more, you know, and just not by phone and not just just to talk, people to talk to each other. It's sort of uneasy when you see young people out and they're on the phones all the time and they're not talking. It makes you wonder if they're going to lose the art of conversation, if that's going to be missing in the future. But that's what I think. That's one thing we could learn, that, you know, after being shut off, it'd be nice just to communicate with people instead of just phoning and texting people all the time. Just to go see them or just talk to them. That's something I think could come out of that as being better. And hopefully it will.